3 people are dead. A cruise ship is stranded off the coast of Africa, and a virus that wasn't supposed to spread between humans might be doing exactly that. I'm FactSpark. If you want more stories like this explained simply, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. A cruise ship left Argentina on March 20th with around 150 passengers, 70 crew members, and a mix of nationalities from across the world. 14 of them were Spanish. The destination was the Canary Islands. A long voyage, calm waters, routine. Except it wasn't. During the crossing, some passengers started struggling to breathe. At first, it looked like the flu. Tired, feverish, achy, nothing alarming. But then the symptoms in some of these people stopped behaving like the flu. 3 passengers died. A 69-year-old British man was emergency evacuated to South Africa and put in the ICU. 2 crew members developed severe respiratory symptoms and needed urgent medical attention. The ship was sitting off the coast of Cape Verde with restricted disembarkation for safety reasons. And everywhere in the headlines, one word: Hantavirus. That word alone makes people panic. But here's the real question, the one that nobody was answering clearly. Can this virus jump from person to person? Because if it can, everything changes. Before I answer that, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. When you first heard about this cruise ship story, what was your first reaction? Was it fear, curiosity, or did you think the media was exaggerating? Tell me below, because it says a lot about how we process health news today. Now, let's keep going, because the answer to that main question is not what most people expect.
To understand what happened on that ship, you first need to understand what hantavirus actually is. And this is where most coverage gets lazy. Hantavirus is not one single virus. It's a family of viruses. And that distinction matters enormously because different members of that family behave in completely different ways. The strains that circulate across Asia and Europe mainly attack the kidneys. Dangerous, yes, but a different kind of danger. The strains that live in the Americas are another story. Those tend to go straight for the lungs and the heart, fast, aggressively. Now, here's the thing that makes hantavirus completely unlike the viruses you probably think about most often. It does not travel on the subway. It does not circulate in offices or shopping centers or school hallways. Its natural world is completely different from ours. The virus lives in wild rodents, field mice specifically, in rural areas, in closed spaces, in dust. The person who gets infected almost always got there the same way. They inhaled contaminated particles, dried rodent droppings, urine, saliva. When this material dries out and becomes dust, and someone disturbs it and breathes it in, the virus has its way in. You don't have to touch the mouse. You don't have to be bitten. Walking into an abandoned cabin, sweeping a dry barn floor, moving old boxes in a space where rodents lived, that's enough. The dust does the rest. Once inside the body, this virus can destroy lung tissue with terrifying speed. And here's the brutal part. There is no antiviral that stops it. No medication that kills it. Treatment is pure support. Oxygen, intensive monitoring, mechanical ventilation if the lungs start to fail. You're essentially keeping the body alive and hoping it fights its way through.
Now you understand why people panic when they hear the word. But stay with me, because now we get to the part that actually explains the cruise ship, and it changes the picture completely. Almost every hantavirus strain in the world follows one rule without exception. It goes from rodent to human. Full stop. It does not go from human to human. That is the wall. That is the limit of its spread. Almost every strain, because there is one exception. In the south of Argentina and in Chile, there is a specific variant called the Andes virus. It's carried by a rodent called the long-tailed mouse, native to Patagonia and the Andean valleys. And the Andes virus has one characteristic that separates it from nearly every other hantavirus on Earth. It is the only hantavirus strain in which documented person-to-person transmission has been recorded. Now, before that sentence sends you into full alarm mode, stay with me, because the next part is just as important as that one. Documented cases of person-to-person transmission have happened only in very specific circumstances. We're talking about couples living together,
long-term caregivers in close physical contact with a severely ill patient, people sharing a household with someone in the acute stage of infection, the kind of exposure where you are breathing the same enclosed air at close range for extended periods. This is not transmission that happens because you crossed paths with someone in a corridor. It is not airborne spread the way measles moves, or respiratory spread the way COVID moved through populations. It does not travel through a building's ventilation system the way some people might imagine.
The conditions have to be very specific. The contact has to be very close, and the person transmitting has to be severely ill. So when someone tells you hantavirus can spread person to person, they're technically right. When someone implies that means it spreads like the flu, they are wrong. Those are two very different things, and that difference is everything. So what do we actually know about what happened on that cruise ship? At least 2 infections have been confirmed as hantavirus. One in the partner of the first passenger who died. That person became sick during the return journey. One in the British man currently in the ICU in Johannesburg. Additional cases were still under investigation at the time of reporting, including those 2 crew members with acute respiratory symptoms. Spain's Ministry of Health stated that the evidence pointed to the contagion having occurred on the ship itself, and that is where things get genuinely complicated. Because contagion on the ship can mean 2 very different things. Option 1, there was a shared environmental source inside the vessel, some contaminated space, a storage area, a ventilation duct, somewhere with rodent material that multiple people were exposed to independently. Everyone got it from the same place, not from each other. Option 2, there was person-to-person transmission. Someone infected someone else, and then possibly that person infected another. Think of it like a fire in a building. You know there are flames on multiple floors, but you don't yet know whether each floor had its own independent spark, or whether the fire climbed from one level to the next. That difference changes everything about how you respond. That's exactly why authorities were conducting genetic sequencing of the virus samples from each case. Sequencing is essentially reading the virus's fingerprint, its unique genetic signature. If all the samples match each other perfectly, that suggests a chain of transmission between people. If the samples show slight variations, it suggests multiple independent exposures from a shared environmental source. Until those results came in, the honest answer was this: confirmed hantavirus cases, confirmed deaths, person-to-person transmission not ruled out, but also not proven. That uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it's real, and pretending otherwise would be worse. Now let's talk about you and your actual risk right now. If you're watching this from anywhere in the world and you were not on that ship and you have not recently traveled through rural Patagonia or the southern Andean valleys, your personal risk today is low. Not 0 for every human being on Earth, but low for you specifically. And here's why that's not just empty reassurance. This virus has requirements. It needs an infected rodent. It needs the dried excretions of that rodent to be disturbed and airborne. It needs you to inhale those particles. It does not transmit by touching a railing. It does not spread by standing near someone in a crowd. It does not circulate through the air conditioning of a mall or an office. Your risk is not tied to a whole country. It's tied to a very specific type of exposure. But low risk for most people does not mean 0 risk for everyone. There are 2 situations where this becomes more directly relevant to you. Situation 1. You live in or are planning to travel to rural areas of southern Argentina or Chile.
The Patagonian steppe, the Andean foothills, rural valleys in that region. If that's you, 3 things to remember, and remember them clearly. First, avoid entering closed spaces that have been abandoned. Cabins, barns, storage buildings, anywhere that may have had rodent activity and has been sealed up. Don't just walk in. Second, if you have to enter one of those spaces, ventilate it first. Open everything from the outside. Let fresh air move through for at least 30 minutes before you go in. Third, if you're cleaning a space that may have had rodents in it, never dry sweep. Never. Dry sweeping launches exactly the particles you do not want in your lungs. Instead, wet the area first with a water and bleach solution, let it sit, then clean with gloves. That step alone dramatically reduces your risk. Follow whatever your local health authorities are advising in real time. These basics are the foundation. Situation 2. In the last several weeks, you were in a rural risk zone. You had contact with spaces where rodents lived. And now you have developed fever, intense muscle pain, fatigue, and especially breathing difficulty that is getting progressively worse rather than better. In that case, go to a doctor. But this is critical. When you get there, do not just describe the symptoms. Tell the doctor exactly where you were. Tell them you were in a rural area where hantavirus is present. That information changes the diagnosis completely. Without it, a doctor can easily mistake early hantavirus infection for pneumonia or a standard flu presentation and treat it accordingly, which means losing crucial time. The incubation period can reach up to 8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Which means symptoms can appear long after you've left the area and long after you've stopped thinking about it. The exposure window matters. Tell the doctor the full story. So here is where things stand. There is a real outbreak under investigation. There are confirmed hantavirus cases. There are people who died, and their families are living through something devastating. There are health authorities working urgently to understand exactly what happened inside that ship. The central question: did the virus travel between people, or did multiple people encounter the same contaminated source, was still open when this was recorded. The genetic sequencing results would answer it. And if those results change the picture in a significant way, that story deserves a follow-up. But what we can say with confidence is this: even in its most concerning form, even in the one variant where person-to-person spread has been documented, this virus does not move through populations the way the threats that have shaped the last few years moved. It doesn't drift through crowds. It doesn't spread silently in airports. It requires specific conditions, specific exposures, specific proximity. What happened on that ship is serious. It is a tragedy for the people who lost their lives and for everyone who loved them. It is an urgent scientific investigation. But for most people watching this, the takeaway is not fear. It's understanding. Because once you understand how a virus actually moves, fear turns into clarity. And clarity is what lets you make good decisions when it actually matters. For yourself, for the people around you, and for how you read the next headline that's designed to make you panic before you've heard the full story.
If this kind of explanation is useful to you, the real story, no noise, no exaggeration, subscribe to FactSpark. There's more coming. See you in the next one.